Hello everyone and welcome back. Today will be a quick overview of the King of Fighters Neowave playing on Xbox One X via backwards compatibility. Now, this game was released in 2004, July 30th in the arcades, and of course, with the King of Fighters 2003 being done, this was released on the Atomus Wave, thanks to SNK Playmore, and was also brought to the PlayStation 2 thanks to Ignition Entertainment. It did also show up on the Sega Dreamcast and, of course, the Xbox. Today, as I had mentioned in the beginning, I am playing this on the Xbox One X via backwards compatibility. Now, this game is still available, of course, online. You can pick it up on the Xbox Network, also along with the PlayStation Network as well. Now, King of Fighters was again immediately following King of Fighters 2003, which SNK basically retired development on using the previous MVS hardware since they were using it since 1990. This particular game was developed on the Atomus Wave released by Sammy. Now, this was a pretty rushed product. Didn't really SNK Playmore didn't really give its devs really enough time to get used to the new hardware that Sammy introduced. This game does have kind of updated sprites, though they're more up-res rather than redrawn, and of course with 3D backgrounds as well. So with such a short development time, this game is more of a mishmash and almost like a dream match. It's not canonical in any way in regards to the storyline, and again, like I said, it's very much like a dream match, even though some characters, of course, are gone in this version. Now, the Atomus Wave itself was a cartridge-based system, much like the Neo Geo, with some similarities, which was since it was based on the Sega Dreamcast hardware itself. So, of course, since SNK did release some of their King of Fighters ports to the Dreamcast, it did make them at least a little bit used to the product or the hardware itself, though not much time, again, as I mentioned, was really given to this development rather than starting a brand new game. They really wanted to see what they could do, and also based on King of Fighters 2002 by changing some of the systems itself. The high resolution graphics aged well, however, the sprites did not age as well. A lot of the sprites and characters were from the Korean developed Eolith software from 2001 and 2002. They did test the waters with some additions to the game systems themselves. They added a heat mode, which does basically power up your character when it comes to their damage on their attacks, but they do have draining health while that is activated. It can be activated, of course, at any time, but there is a cooldown period before you can end it or restart it again. And of course, besides the heat mode, they did also attach the super cancel mode and along with the guard break mode as well. With a fireball motion, you can actually break any opponent's character's guard mode. And the last but not least is a max mode. Basically, if your gauge is colored blue and you have an alternate version, this is basically an alternate version of the extra mode itself. Unlike 2002 and everything else, every character, both your own team and the opponent's team, starts off with a maxed gauge mode. This season's teams, it's still pretty much the same. The Japan team has Kyo, Benimaru, and Goro. The K team still has K, Maxima, and Whip. Fatal Fury is still Terry, Andy, and Joe. Art of Fighting is still Ryo, Robert, and Takuma. Ikari Warriors are Leona, Ralph, and Clark. There is a hidden slash alternate version of Orochi Leona. The Psycho Soldier team is still Athena, Sei, and Jin. The women's fighting team is King, Mai, and Yuri. Korean Justice team is Jun, Chang, and Choi. The Orochi team is back with Yashiro, Shermie, and Chris, and there's also the awakened version of them. There is a 97 special team, which is Ryuji, Blue Mary, and Billy. The Yagami team is back with Yori, Mature, and Vice. The Dream team is Sazu, Kula, and Shingo, and hidden characters Kim, Vanessa, and Ramon. And then the one of the hidden bosses is Geese Howard, which is basically his younger version based on the Art of Fighting 2 series. Since this, of course, was released also on console, you do also have Seth Kusanagi and Omega. And if you have the PlayStation 2 version, you get an extra of Angel and Mei Li. For the stages, you've got the Manhattan Bridge, a train hangar, a harbor itself, a clock tower, greenhouse, ancient ring, and a plant. For the boss stage, you've got the Howard Connection, associated with young geese. And to be honest, in the pantheon of the King of Fighter games, I would actually rate this really low. I mean, even lower than the original King of Fighters 94. While I do understand that it was a short turnaround time, really the lack of polish and trying things out, considering what was lost from King of Fighters 2003 with the tag mode, which made the battles quite kinetic, or should I say, frenetic and fast paced. This time around, they kind of went backwards, where it kind of goes back to some of the older King of Fighters, but not in a good way. So it's great that they went with 3D backgrounds, which does look nice, especially if you are playing on the Xbox One X and backwards compatibility, as it's now in 4K, even with Dolby Vision when it comes to the coloring, which is great, especially if you're playing on an OLED like I am here. I am playing on a 65-inch OLED and plays very well and, of course, looks wonderfully. However, the sprites, since they're not even redrawn in any way, just slightly up-resed, really kind of stands out. And to be honest, I only picked this up on the Xbox backwards compatibility because it was on sale. I picked it up because I'm a huge fan of King Fighters, and I, of course, still wanted to have this in my collection, even though it is digital. Overall, the graphics, I would give it a 6. I do like the backgrounds, and I do like what they did with the 3D backgrounds, but I am not a fan of the sprites used. I kind of wish if they were moving on, they just would have moved forward with, new or at least redrawn sprites like they used in Capcom versus SNK. Of course, I do understand that was a Capcom developed title, and this was SNK. I still wish they had used redrawn sprites. Our sound effects, pretty standard. I would say a good solid 7. Nothing new really stands out. The voice samples still sound crisp and clear. The hits still sound pretty punchy as well, pun notwithstanding. The music, however, is a throwaway. There aren't really any tracks on there that really stood out, like say some of the standouts that was in 96, 98, or even 2002. So unfortunately, even in this regard, as far as the soundtrack, it is kind of a downer. So I would say 5, maybe a 6 out of 10, but I'll probably go 5 out of 10 on this one. Gameplay, it still plays well. It is one thing at least SNK does. Even a bad SNK fighting game is good than most fighting games. So the only problem is if you are, of course, comparing this to other KOFs, it's definitely near the bottom, or at least at the bottom. Overall, like I said, if you see this title on either the PlayStation Network or in the Xbox Store for a good deal, like $3.99 or less, I would say it's still worth a pickup. It's good to check out what SNK Playmore tried to do with the Thomas Wave. Definitely is a good evolution into what they went to next, which was King of Fighters 11, which they also did with redrawn graphics. That said, for me, it's a 6 out of 10, but I did pick it up because it was on sale. But everyone, thanks for watching this overview. I really appreciate everyone. Hopefully you like, comment, and subscribe. Next up, I'll have King of Fighters 13.